less than a week before Americans head to the polls to elect a new president. Both Democrat and Republican campaigns are in damage control. Racist remarks at this week's Trump rally in New York caused an uproar, especially a comedian's labelling of Puerto Rico as an island of trash. President Joe Biden's responding gaffe, his campaign team saying he only appeared to call Trump supporters garbage, caused even more trouble, prompting Republican nominee Donald Trump to maximise on the comments, even taking to the campaign trail in Wisconsin in a garbage truck. The former president has been campaigning in key swing states, so has his Democratic rival, Vice President Kamala Harris. Both candidates have accused each other of sowing division. Julius Laar is a political strategist who's just returned from the US. He told us what he makes of Trump's latest appearance in a garbage truck.
I mean, first of all, I'd say happy Halloween. 2 weeks ago, it was McDonald's. Now it's a garbage truck and an orange vest. So Donald Trump certainly knows how to put a message front and center. But let's talk about what happened. So Donald Trump seizes the moment and says, you know, I want to amplify this. I want to amplify the gaffe of Joe Biden and put it front and center in front of voters and sort of feed off the energy that that's creating. And I think it is a big problem for the Harris campaign right now because she was ahead. Remember that big speech 2 nights ago in front of the ellipse where she said Donald Trump has an enemies list. I have a to-do list. I want to go to work for all Americans. That was her sort of message, that it's not Republican voters or Harris voters, that she wants to be the president for all Americans. And all of a sudden she has that divide again, and it sort of reminds people of the Hillary Clinton comments back in 2016 when she talked about the baskets of deplorables.
It's unfortunate when the language changes in this way, when candidates stoop so low. But who do you think has the upper hand at the moment? I mean, both are trying to play at the same game, aren't they?
Right. Well, I argue the game is slightly different. If you take a look at the, in part racist rhetoric that came out of that New York City rally. But frankly speaking, this race is still a toss-up. Obviously, messaging-wise, Donald Trump is sort of pulling the spotlight and the attention towards himself. But keep in mind, that's not where the election is being decided. The election is being decided in the 7 swing states, and first and foremost in Pennsylvania. I was just over in Pennsylvania, and let me tell you, the Harris campaign has energy on the ground. They have a strong ground game. They've got their volunteers knocking on doors. We see record numbers in early voting. Now, we don't know exactly how those early voting numbers split up, how many Democrats, how many Republicans are voting, but the energy on the ground is there. So I wouldn't say that Donald Trump is just in the driver's seat, whether it's a Trump, a trashed car or just driving the message. I would argue that this campaign is particularly close and probably the closest one that we've seen polling-wise, at least in a decade.
Julius, bring it down to the core messages again for our viewers. In the end, what are the campaign arguments of Trump and Harris? I mean, they both have very different visions for the US, don't they?
Right. I mean, you can break down Donald Trump's campaign closing message into 6 words. He's saying, she broke it, I'll fix it. That's the basic message. He says the inflation is high, the economy is weak, people are struggling at the gas pump and paying the bills. Let me take you back to 2017 through 21 when I was president, and I'll get down the prices and I'll make your life better. That's his basic message. Now, of course, the economy sort of tells a very different story. We just got the numbers yesterday, 2.8% growth in the economy that is happening in the US right now, 50 million jobs created. So you can make the argument that the economy is actually pretty hot in the United States, at least compared to the standards that we see here in Europe. But frankly speaking, Kamala Harris is trying a different message, and she's struggling because of the fact that she, of course, is still part of the administration, and there still is a sort of worry that the administration and Joe Biden is sort of dragging down the ticket because still his numbers aren't particularly good. So she tried to create some space and say, look, we're moving forward. I've got an economic plan, and I will move this country forward. But I would argue that the message from Trump going into the final week is a little bit more crisp with the message of she broke it, I'll fix it.
Both sound like they're trying to sell change, but at the end of the day, it's the better marketer. What is getting through to so many of the undecided voters, the younger voters as well, and people in those swing states that you've been touring?
Right. So I saw numbers that roughly 1.2 million people are still undecided in the 7 swing states that we're talking about. And I don't think you're going to reach those people over DW News or CNN or the New York Times. So I think that's why Donald Trump is creating these stunts, the McDonald's stunt, and now the Halloween trash stunt, because he knows that's the way you get in front of a cell phone into a mobile feed, into a TikTok feed. People playing Call of Duty or watching sort of makeup tips. And that's where he's trying to slide in with this type of messaging. Because again, I don't think those voters who haven't yet decided, and by the way, I can't imagine how anyone is undecided after, $15 billion of TV ads and a campaign that's been raging for months. But still, there is that undecided portion of voters. And I think he is trying to create messages that sort of get through and get into those niches.
You're a political strategist. Why is he doing so well on social media? Why can't Harris try to, I don't know, get her hands on using TikTok and social media? I mean, it's free. It's not something that costs millions like it does with TV ads.
Right. I mean, it's sort of, I'd say almost weird that a 78-year-old sort of gets TikTok and gets the idea of social media. She's certainly
Totally
just 60
agree.
years old, so way younger. But the fact is that, of course, Donald Trump is willing to go there. I mean, now a normal politician puts on an apron, sort of fries the burgers at McDonald's and then hands them out. So that is, of course, viral material that's going there. But let me just talk about, what's important. Now, people will see this as a stunt for what it is. Some people will say he's actually one of us, flipping the burgers. But in the end, I would hope that doesn't matter which side you stand on, people will look at, what's in it for me. Who is going to offer me the better vision for tomorrow? Who has the better economic policies that actually, help me and my family? And I think people can examine the record and then make their choice. So I think you got to differentiate between the polyoptics, the optics of politics, and the stunts, which obviously, make a difference, and they have made a difference in the past, or whether people look at the numbers. And I think there is a divide in there.
And I'd also like to know what it's going to mean for the rest of us, for the rest of the world. But that's another interview. Right. Julius van der Laar, thank you for joining us and thanks for your insights.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. Covert Russian influence deeply impacted the 2015 US presidential election, undermining many voters' confidence that their elections were safe from foreign meddling. In the years since, US authorities claim they've learned lessons and are better equipped to deal with the threat. But they also warn that Russia hasn't backed off. And other countries are also trying their hand at bending US voters to their will.
When right-wing commentator Tim Pool announced just over a week ago to his 2 million followers that he was stepping back from his successful YouTube show, he said it was for personal reasons.
So with that being said, it's kind of the weirdest way to announce that I'm pursuing, my family life to the best of my abilities.
But many speculated that the real reason had something to do with a recent Department of Justice investigation, claiming that he was being paid by Russia to spread pro-Trump disinformation. The indictment alleges that Russia funneled $10 million to 3 political commentators, one of them assumed to be Pool, laundered through a US-based shell company, without disclosing to them that the funding was foreign. Authorities say it's part of Moscow's effort to influence the 2024 election, which they say has become more sophisticated since its first major efforts in 2016, although efforts to counter interference have also improved.
In 2024, in my opinion, we have a good reason to be a bit more optimistic, so to speak, that the threat has been smaller than in 2016. And the key reason is because that basically better performance on the side of American intelligence agencies, as well as better responsibility from relevant media organs.
Still, it proves to be a game of cat and mouse. While the Department of Justice managed to shut down the phony company funneling Moscow's money to Tim Pool, Russia continues to generate a flood of posts from fake accounts on social media platforms such as X, Instagram, and TikTok aimed at U.S. voters. The U.S. intelligence community also says 2 other foreign powers are targeting U.S.'s upcoming election, Iran and China. Iran appears to be focusing its efforts at preventing Trump from taking office, targeting particular groups through fake websites such as Afro Majority aimed at black voters and Not Our War aimed at veterans. China, according to U.S. intelligence, does not appear to have a preference in the presidential election, but is focusing efforts on unseating down-ballot politicians with anti-China views. Investigators exposed a Chinese-linked online campaign against Marsha Blackburn, a Republican congresswoman whose aggressive anti-China stance has garnered national attention.
We're going to have to break a lot more China to save America.
Beijing has insisted that it does not intend to and will not interfere in the U.S. election. While U.S. national security officials have prepared for the threat of foreign meddling, they haven't ruled out new methods that may only come to light after the votes are cast.